Hi, this is Deepak Sahni, founder and CEO of Healthians.
So, Deepak, welcome to the Founder Thesis podcast. I believe you started your first venture when you were just 19 years old. Tell me what led up to that.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me here. Great to be talking to you. Um, since my childhood, I've been very curious about things, and specifically, everybody would have met me at that point of time, thought that I'll be an electrical engineer. Actually, I used to play with a lot of electrical things, built in my own stuff by breaking things. I created a fan of my own, running and taking it back to school when I was in fifth class. So electronics is all around me. I used to do a lot of play with that, and I was also known to destroy things too. And whenever I used to build anything new in the electronics or to try it with, I used to always call somebody and say, "You switch on the plug. I will not," because I was never sure that it will work or not. And so I blasted a lot of things too at that point of time. But that was a learning and curiosity that I never stopped and kept on learning even after blasting few things
And
out.
which city did you grow up in?
I was born in Delhi and brought up in Delhi only. Yeah, that's a city I spent a lot of time. And then starting from there, obviously when I grew up in the age, with obviously being an average child, but obviously anything which is new, anything that comes up, always was curious about learning that. And it happened to me that probably in the age when I was in middle of eighth, ninth of my standard, and all the computers brought into the schools at that point of time, and it was very new sort of a concept. I got curious. I got a 486 at home, started using it. We used to have that old broadband, which tunes used to be like 15, 20 seconds before it gets connected and stuff like that. So an early user of that with all that curiosity of internet and all that stuff. And somehow from that electrical thing, moved into a lot into computers and started up. I was used to be very average till 10th. And the first talk of a life when I passed on 10th and went to my school and I asked that, okay, I want to take maths. They said, no, at this score, probably you should not take maths. You should all look at an alternate option. So I convinced them, and they kept on saying, no. It basically spoils the school results if it doesn't help that way. And I finally decided to change the school. And that changed everything. I stood number one in my class in 11th and almost in top five in 12th. So that was first confidence coming in when it comes to me, I can actually do it. And from a very average guy, challenge came to me and I took that challenge and did that. And then post my 12th, somewhat I was almost decided because we come from a business family. My father was into the business, and he was running to success.
Business?
So he was into fabric export and import, and he was into hospitality too. So both of our business was running fine till I was in 10th. My elder brother was just passing out, and he wanted to join that business too. But somehow in 99, 2000, last my passing years from the school, that business, both of them got drastically impacted. Big losses, the government policies on a little bit of things on export drawings changed. A lot of money got stuck and all that stuff. And we had to go through a very rough phase. And we could see that it's a challenging phase coming across. And it comes down to bank, loans, properties, everything getting involved and all sort of stuff that we seen while I was just passing out. But still, my parents wanted to, because they knew I was good at computer, wanted me to continue. They asked me to join a full-time course, and I probably choose to be in the computers and join the Bachelor's of Computer Application. After doing that for 1 year, I realized that
BU.
probably, no, I did it from Sikkim Manipal University. I joined in the course, and but after 1 year, I dropped out. And the reason for dropping out is I could probably see that there's a difficulty in terms of me concentrating on that and them probably working for me and arranging that particular fee, while I knew I can do something which is faster. And again, the second challenge in the life came onto my face, stating that you decide what you want to do and take this challenge and accept it. And I immediately moved that particular course on a request to a correspondence course and continued my BCA there, but started learning computer hardwares. And the first thing that I learned in the next 5 months was how to build computers, right? and the whole hardware part of it. And I was good at grasping it because it's again a passion in those times. And at the age of 19, I started my first venture, which was basically a computer hardware venture, supplying and repairing computers. And I remember the start of the business happened at a because there was no investment. So it is hardly started like using your own stuff and then building it up from there. And it is not directly started from selling computers, but it started from I being going and probably giving leaflets at the nearby place to the newspapers. And people used to call and I get 500, 600 rupees for repairing that. And I knew that a lot of people at that point of time, even their wire is loose, they will call somebody at home and not touch the computer being a alien to them, right? And that was an advantage. And a lot of people used to only buy computers when they have trust on somebody. So similarly, once I started building it up, friends and family and friends of friends, they got to know it, and I started building computers for them. I used to go to Nehru Place, bring the stuff, assemble it myself, and used to sell. And it was a great margin, sort of a stuff. I think for that 1.5 years, I sold over 100 odd computers to make a living for myself and give something back to the family, and realize that actually I can look at surviving, right? There was in between, I was also looking at what I can do next and stuff like that. And for a stability also, I went and gave 2 job interviews also. Both got selected, both at the hardware side of it. At that point of time, used to be a lot of companies in India. We used to offer technical support to international people on phone, right? Both the companies
BPO.
selected me, BPOs and KPOs. So both the companies selected me. One was a hardware support process, and one was I think it was an HP or some process of some printer that I don't know, but that was a backend. But finally coming back home, the parents were happy that I could probably get a job, but I told them I'd want to continue building something of my own. And they agreed because they knew that this is something that was not anticipated, and simultaneously continued my education. So somehow, just after starting that for 2 years, the lot of computer market got crashed in a way that all these big players like HP, Dell, and everything started building computers, giving it at a very cheaper rate and stuff like that. The margins from
The
20 odd
margins
thousand
went
a
down.
computer came down to just 4,000 a computer, and that too in 4,000 you have to service it for the whole year, right? That's an annual maintenance you have to offer. So it was becoming unviable completely, and I had to decide that okay, if I will continue to do this will end up into losses unless you have a very big business. That is a time with this I had to start something of my own again into terms of something next. And again, with a very limited sort of a resources, I had only 4 or 5 computers which I used to buy back at that point of time, and somewhere in the sum of the parts. So I assembled them and reached out to 4 or 5 computers. On a little that I could earn, I could go back. I went to Deutsche Bank and asked them for a loan, and I got a 2 lakh rupees loan from them to start something of my own. And I went into
This
software,
was,
but
well, you
this
had
was
a partnership firm or something like that. Like you had a
yeah,
business
yeah. So I
running.
had a proprietorship firm that I was running
Okay.
at
Okay.
the time of computer assembling, which had a little bit of a turnover and stuff.
So
And based
therefore
on
you were eligible for the
yeah,
loan.
yeah.
Okay.
So based on that, the total eligibility, they said we cannot give you more than 1 lakh. After a lot of effort, they agreed to give me 2 lakhs, right?
Hmm.
And with that particular loan coming in, and this particular computers and my father's old office, I set it up my first web and the software business. And because I was learning and there was a lot of curiosity on the software side now, and this industry was also going very very heavily.
In
So
which year is
I
this?
decided this is roughly 2003, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Almost touching in the 21 years of age at that point of time. And so end of 2003, I started this. It was a small business, started with just 2 people, and kept it like that for about 1.5 year to understand what the industry is, where do we want to go, and stuff like that. And at the same time, there was new softwares coming, like Flash came in, which was lately bought by Adobe. It was the first animation software. And so sitting with some sort of a people and my employees, I started learning that, and I became an expert in making something out there. So that became my USP, because of which I started getting some sort of a business, because that software was very lessly used or unknown to India, and I could probably adopt it. Day and night I used to work on it, learned it, and then I started creating that.
So
And
this was like
somehow we
marketing websites. People who wanted
Yeah,
to
it was
market.
like making website, marketing it, and also making small applications around it. And then lately it added on to provide a whole sort of solution around web software and all. So I
And
continued that in,
Indian
yeah,
companies, yeah, Indian clients.
all Indian clients.
Okay.
And clients like, I still remember I had a very, very big client called T Series because, which fortunately I got because I animated something for them and they really, really liked it. And they told that, okay, why don't you just work for us? And it was like equivalent enough for my 1 year of dream project. So one project
Okay.
for a good for a year sort of a stuff. But then I realized that it's not enough because there is our employee salaries, there are other things coming in, and probably again I had at the back of my mind two hits already in terms of stating loans may hit you back, so you can't take more loans to grow. At the same time, business also the industry keeps changing, and that's what's happening in the web also at that point of time. A lot of nook and corner people are starting some sort of a web, so you had to create your USP out there. 2006, it happened to be that while doing this business, I met two doctors, both in Delhi, and they were coming largely from, they were Indians, but they came from abroad after studying and all that, and they want to do something in India. And that's was my first encounter with healthcare industry. And they discussed with me that they wanted to create something on the web, and they want to do something specialized there. But the problem is that the Indian system does not allow them to market themselves, so they can't do it on their own name. But I have to help them to build something and then do it. So we, in a way, we joint ventured and said that okay, it will be on my name. I'll create something which is very, very common, and something building out of this probably will have their name behind that. And that project took about 6 8 months, but it ran really, really successful. And that was my entry into healthcare, wherein just at the end of 2006 itself, I decided that the whole business of web and everything, I will just do healthcare and I will shut down everything else because it was very, very competitive. And I found my niche in here. And the journey of growth started right from there. So that loan got paid off. The employee strength kept on going big from one office to another to
And
office in,
this was
yeah,
still like multiple healthcare clients, or this was just with that one
multiple.
client only?
No,
Okay.
multiple healthcare clients. So once we entered in these particular doctors, the other doctors started to know. And actually, what
Like
happened is one of the
creating
doctors started getting a
.coms
lot of
for doctors.
.coms. Yeah, I was creating .coms for doctor like knee replacement India, bariatric surgery India, and all. And then the doctor which was doing bariatric surgery, he started receiving 10 12 inquiries a day internationally too, or from people around India. So somehow he gave a Times of interview in a Times of India, and it got printed that probably he's the guy who tried this, and he's getting 10 to 12 inquiries, which used to be a very big thing at that point of time. And actually, TUI did a report on that. So
Okay.
using that newspaper cutting, I was getting a lot of input or inbound interest, right, from a lot of healthcare people, and the business started
Wow.
to really, really expand from one doctor to another, to clinic, to hospitals, to this. And this business kept on growing because I kept on increasing our team. We became expert into many technologies for healthcare. We were the expert in content writing for healthcare. We were expert in animation for healthcare. We were expert in software and content management systems for healthcare. And we were also doing applications like online appointments, web nurseries, online payments. And as big as in few years, we started making hospital information systems also, which is a complete ERP for hospitals.
Wow.
With that kind of an expansion and the team expansion and growth, we had offices in India. I opened an office in US. I opened an office in Dubai. I opened an office in Thailand.
Wow.
And
Okay.
all these companies were actually doing only healthcare. So more than 360 hospital chains across the world is what we worked with. 700 odd doctors, some 1,000 plus clinics. And almost doing, it was like a product to us, but it was a customized product as well, because every customization had to happen. Language changes used to happen, but somewhere our expertise in back of it used to work very, very well. And we started to develop and grow this particular thing during
But
this
by
journey,
which
which is
year
basically,
did you
yeah.
have all these international offices?
So 2006 is when I started getting into healthcare. By 2009 or 10, most of these offices were established, wherein we
Wow.
had some sales representative locally. They were bringing these particular clients. We had 5, 5, 7, 7 employees everywhere. I used to also travel, but it was a business which is continuously coming in that zone.
And what kind of revenue were you doing by 2009-10?
So this revenue, at a peak, it touched about 16, 17 crores a year at one point of time. That was a peak for that revenue.
And
And
what
while
did
this
come?
journey, Yeah. So headcount somewhat around 180 people in total.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
One more question before next
Yeah.
step.
Yeah.
Uh, what gave you the courage to invest in setting up offices outside India? Because that is a certain amount of upfront investment to
Yeah.
rent a
Yeah.
place, to give salary. Because when you hire
Yeah.
someone, it'll take them 3 to 6 months before they start generating business for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
So somehow very early in between 2006 and 7, I understood that the healthcare and technology are two things apart and they don't talk to each other. Somebody who knows both is basically not only required in India, but worldwide. And that gap I was starting to find. And it is not that someday I woke up and I realized that I should go abroad. It is actually connection to connection. So a lot of Indian doctors used to also service in UAE, right? And one of these guys actually went in there and joined as a head of the hospital in UAE and said, why don't you just come over and do this? So I started one UAE and the same story happened. So other UAE hospitals started coming and I had to finally put an office there. And
okay.
by then, any new hospital which was coming in was actually calling us because they knew that we are the only one who can probably do it. So similarly, the connections start to build in each of these
Mm.
cities where I could have at least one client remotely. And for using that one client, I actually opened an office there and then started to expand it one by one.
Okay.
And
Amazing.
it was basically the trust and the confidence was coming in from the gap that we were finding and the niche that we have obtained for ourselves. And there was a lot of inbound inquiries that anybody probably at one point of time in India, if any hospital opens, it is not possible that they have not called us. We will be the part of the pitch, and we have beaten a lot of big companies also at that point of time because the brands also got entered into in the pitch to win over them, like think likes of McCann and all those JSW or some JW sort of brand agencies and all that stuff.
Okay, okay. So
So
you were basically competing for marketing spend of the hospital budget. Like they have a marketing budget which they normally spend on digital presence and digital branding. So that is what you were competing for with these digital agencies.
yeah, so basically the sentiment that was going out is that a lot of people have started searching online for knowing which doctor, which hospital, what is the timing, what is the thing, and that is why they had to have a presence. So we were entering to give them a presence there, but they didn't knew what to be made, right? And they didn't know because if you go to a doctor at that point of time and ask him that, okay, I'm starting a neuro department and give me your content, he won't be able to give you for years. And there used to be a condition in this market where for years the website does not used to go live because
Right.
nobody knew how to make it live, and we were the ones who were making it every 3 months, right? I still remember we did 40 hospitals of Fortis go live together in
Wow.
roughly around 120 days of development, right? And wrote 40 different sort of contents for 40 different hospital and specialties because we knew how to do it and we had an in-house team. So that was our forte at that point of time. While doing this and doing some work in US, this another thing happened which founded my entire base of thinking that something in the healthcare industry can be thought and built, right? And that happened in 2007. When I was working with one of the US clients, and there was a first medical tourism association getting formed in US by two gentlemen. And I was talking to them and told them, okay, you're doing something and I'm from a healthcare industry, this and that. But I went online and saw something about it. So you're trying to do something very, very big, but your website is just one page, right? So they wrote me, and that type of time used to have Skype and Yahoo Messengers largely. So we had a talk on Skype, and they told me on Skype that, see, we are a non-profit organization and we can't afford because US is very expensive when it comes to building something like a software that we're talking about. So it will take us time to build something like this. So I said to them that, what if I build the entire thing for you? Because I was looking at actually my entry in the US. At the same time, I was getting one client, and I said we can't pay more than $1,500 as max, and the project was very, very big. So I knew this will take my investment to that particular project for another $15,000 or $3,000 to build it. But I somehow agreed, and in barter, what I told them is that you give me an exclusivity for this in India, right? And at the same time, I would like to be your face for Indian market when it comes to medical travel. And I bartered it, just a fluke because I didn't know how it will go and will I turn up into losses or something. But that year I built everything for them. It got launched.
And what
And
what I just want to ask something here.
Yeah.
What you got in return was that in India, obviously, medical tourism is not outbound; it's inbound, right? Nobody
It
from
was
India
inbound.
goes.
No, in India at that time, medical tourism was a black box. There was no term called medical tourism, and nobody knew what
Okay.
would medical tourism be. So if I talk to
Okay.
somebody like you, I'm talking to you in a medical tourism. He says, "Are you stupid? We have cows on the road. We have hospitals like Safdarjung where we don't get admission for a normal guy. Why do you expect that an international person will travel to India?" That's
Right,
used to be
right,
the
right.
story. Specifically when
Okay.
you talk to somebody international or somebody sitting in India at that point of time.
Okay.
So, but
So,
I could see something coming up there.
well, these guys were building something which would do outbound for US, like US customers who
Yeah,
can't
no.
afford
So
treatment
they
in
guys
US.
were building it. They were just building a platform to connect world on a global form
Okay.
and let them decide which country is better and who wants to travel where. So they were
Okay.
not having any purpose of onboard and inbound. It was just a
Mm.
platform. And the
Okay,
world
fine.
was connecting first time regarding this particular thing because these people could think this could be a business, right? And that is why they made it. And along with them, I thought also that India could be a very good market for that because I was into healthcare. So I thought my association with that will give me something.
Uh,
And it was just a blind for me, nothing else. And I built that platform for them. The moment I built that platform for them, they told me that okay, for next 3 years you are exclusive partner in India. If anybody becomes a member to this particular association from India, has to come through you, and you are the one who will brought them to this particular place. So next
and
3 years I was
how will you
spending
earn?
three. So there
Like
was no
people
earning
were paying
platform
a,
for.
there
There
was
was
no
no earning
membership
platform fee.
fees for
That
people
membership
who
fee
want to.
will be paid to them, not to me. Yeah.
Acha. There was
So,
no
so
earning
what
from
I
you
was
guys at all.
no.
Acha.
What I was
Okay.
earning from here was on the things there was no earning very clearly. What I was earning from here was network, right?
Okay.
Or entry into something which is going to be very very new. Because I
Mm.
started to understand the global market and I started to understand working in Dubai, Thailand, and this thing that there is something that can be created very big here, right? And I want to be the part of it, becoming just because it was an intuition. Like sometimes the entrepreneurship gives you a very clear intuition that nothing happens if I lose everything. Also, I want to do it, sort of.
Yeah.
So I
I
built
think
that
the
for them.
other benefit here is that now you're not a cost center for a hospital, but you're also a revenue center. Like
Absolutely. And that's what
a
happened.
hospital.
So once you understand how this functioned for me, it changed it very clearly. So when I went to this particular thing for so next 3 years, 6 months in the US, 6 months in India. When I first thing happened, so they were doing a one big conference for the first time. And I went to some of my clients in Indian hospital and they were just coming up. And they were like beautiful hospital, big spends happening in India. And it's just coming up like this. And they want to do everything. So I told them that there's something like this coming in and we should present India as destination. So it was very hard for me to tell them because everybody wanted to know, you take my presentation. You do only me. Give me an exclusivity. My CEO will only go. I used to tell them, no, it is India as a destination. You can't promote yourself. And that is the time when I started getting sponsorship for, because I had to travel also, which was a very expensive thing. And the booth is something that I got for India for free. But all of this has to integrate. So what I told them, there was that I made almost 30 hospitals in 3 years as a member. All 3 years I took all the big hospitals on that platform. We had a very big booth which used to say India as a destination, and people used to visit those booths. Presentations used to run for all the hospital buildings which were coming up in India, and the CEO of those particular hospital used to give a talk or a speech there of how we are creating India. One advantage India had very clearly was that world over people knew that every place you go, any hospital you go, the doctor will be an Indian, largely, or somehow
True.
few doctors will always be Indian.
True.
And
True.
that's
True.
why India did not had much of a difficulty in proving that at least the healthcare is good. Infrastructure was a problem. But these pictures when went online and they presented their new hospital plans and all, so people got to start to think that India is changing. India has become really, really good in infrastructure, and that's where the growth started to see. So 3 years we made a lot of network there, and the anticipation was this network would start paying very, very soon and stuff like that. I made a good network. I was talking to marketing heads till now. Now I started to talk to the owners. They are
Yeah.
traveling with me, they are with me, and they're speaking to me what you're trying to do and all. But it was my turn to tell them that now you can create business out of it. And it was a very difficult moment. So I came back after the third year. I decided now we'll not go to that particular conference because making someone travel from US is not possible. Where is our market? And we built some connections in Africa, in Iraq, Iran, Nigeria, Congo, Kenya, and all those places because people were visiting from there. And I started to use those particular connections, came back to India, also started small consulting business to provide medical tourism or international value travel business as a consulting option for them to open that. And I started working with that particular hospitals to build those international patient units. So we first time had something called international patient services within the hospital, convincing them that you will have to have a hospitality desk, you will have to have collect the patient from the hospital, put him into some guest house and all that stuff. The whole policy and everything else was a very difficult task, but everybody was trying to understand their own bit, and working with them really made it possible. And we started seeing there is a flow of patients coming in from nearby countries. So SAARC became one region, Africa became another region, Iraq, Iran became another region, Libya became another region, and stuff like that, and started to flow in.
You were
And
managing a service, like this was a services business, or was it a revenue share?
so initially it was just a consulting service business, but the web was getting benefit out of it because the only way to reach out these patients were actually internet, right?
Right.
So the internet contracts were changing now from a retainership sort of a contract. It changed to basically more of commission contracts, or more of success fee contracts, right?
Okay.
So then, because we became so confident, we said no, we will only charge you from what you will earn, and that's how we will go internationally, market you and everything. You will have patients, and we'll take the charge based on what the patient is gonna be billed at, right? And that actually gave us more business at the same time and a deeper connect, because till that time what was happening is that there were a lot of companies mushrooming in, and everybody used to feel maybe the new company will give us better, right? So there was no lock-in with anyone, and anybody can throw you out after 1 year of contract and say, boss, you have done a very beautiful website, but I've got a new designer, he's saying something, I want to try them once, right?
Yeah,
And they
this
will
web
shift.
design is a commodity business now.
Yeah. So I started to feel that, and this gave me another edge over others, stating that, boss, you will give me web services, but you want to give me business, and that is how this guy will help me. And that made me go more deeper, understand more deeper. And then it became like more than a service provider, we became like a partner. And then we also consolidated into work with limited clients, but do it do it like you are completely integrated, because the speed of losing the accounts in this industry depends upon if the person changes in the organization or the new person brings in the new agency. So it is still then only, and I was feeling that all over, and the industry was becoming competitive. So this became my USP for that point of time. Till 2000, from 2009 and 10, I opened my own medical travel business, and I started to refer the patient through my own medical tourism website also, right? And both of this worked parallelly till 2013, and wherein the change started to happen. So 2013, somehow I reached to a level where I thought that I've made something for myself, in terms
How
of the
much
earnings are
revenue
stabilized.
were you
So
generating by 13?
both businesses put together should be around 20-25 crores annually,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so it was looking like to be stabilized, but everything was moving back to the business, stuff like that. It was not like I was taking
And it
a
was a
cash out.
treadmill.
It was treadmill, and on that treadmill,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was like keep on running, and you will, at the
Yeah.
moment you will stop, there will be an issue. And uh, at that point of time, the two things happened. Number one, I started to realize that this business, if I keep scaling, there is always the sort of a risk of losing out to someone, right? And at the same time, I started to also realize that the business that I am doing, I am thinking I am doing good, but my time was getting spent largely in the hospitals. And when I was sitting in the hospitals talking to patients and talking to the owner and talking to patients again and seeing international patients and all, I started to realize there's a lot of pain in this business. And it is not the business for good. Because whatever best I could do, people will not say, I want to go back to this company because it's a good service provider. Or if if ever I got a chance, I will come back to this hospital only. Nobody wants to come back to hospital, and nobody wants to come back to a healthcare service provider like us, because they're actually already very in pain in terms of their monetary thing, or in terms of their family thing, and in terms of spending time here. So I started to feel their pain somehow, and I started to realize that while it is a good business and we are making money over it, right? it is something which is not giving me a sort of a satisfaction, right? And there are times in life when probably the money is more important to you, so you don't look at these things. But when you come to a particular stature, you started to realize that there's much beyond money, right? And that's the first time I started learning that it's not only about what you are making and what you are getting, because it was a need of the hour. You created this, it's fine, but it is not giving you what you want, and you're not happy about it. So that happiness factor was completely missing out of business. And when the happiness factor is not there, then you don't feel like actually doing 100% of yours. And I started to have that feeling at that particular time. And the kick for that is also, the final kick for that was coming in because I was talking to a hospital and I was telling them that we have made these all as commodities and all that stuff. Let's do something good for patient. Let's do something which is preventive. Let's do something where we can come before cure. And that's what why learning in US was coming in from, that we have to be more trustworthy to a patient than anything else. I did a very beautiful program of marketing for them, created everything. It was a big budget project, over 1 crore. And they agreed that we will do everything that you've been saying. It's an amazing project. And at the end of the day, when it was getting finalized in the board meeting, the CEO of the hospital says, okay, we will first choose cancer screening in the neighborhood. And it's going to be all about breast cancer screening. And we will target 150 surgeries. So I said, in my entire plan, we've never talked about anything called surgeries. We have talked about screening people. They say no, but ultimately it has to have some objective. The objective and the target for the entire campaign has to be 150 surgeries. And that's where my trigger started. And I said, see, I am out of it because my plan and projection and everything is being there, but I built it for you. You carry on this particular plan. But I don't think so, because it is basically going in the direction wherein rather than patient thinking that you are a very trustworthy sort of an association, they will feel like ultimately you did all to gain something out of it. And every lens that person will go there, every lens that the doctor will play on this particular person will always be finding a surgical case and not helping him come out of disease. And that's what my trigger was. And I started to think that I'm in wrong place. And 2013, one in January and one in October, I sold both my businesses. And it was never to be like, I want a best of the valuation and I will go into market and all. I just found connects, and all the connects I told, I'm trying to exit this business. Do you guys want to buy? Right? And whatever best offer within that particular thing came out, I just gave it. Right? So the web and the software business, which was doing all the HIS and everything, went to a company in US, which was building the entire hospital information system largely. And the medical travel business went to one of my friend who used to always do medical travel he's a friend and a competition too. And I told him, you run it because you want to do it. And both of them paid me the money, and I exited the business in 2013.
Okay, one or two questions here before next step. How much did you earn from these two sales?
Not much. Ballpark, everything put together, I got less than 5 crores.
Okay. I wanted to understand one thing. Most entrepreneurs in services businesses end up getting sucked into operations. There is some escalation from a client or there is something else, and therefore they are unable to scale as much as you did. How did you learn to scale? Because you kept looking for opportunities. Your focus was very clearly on getting business, which meant that delivery of business was something that you had managed to build some sort of a way in which delivery was not sucking you in. You were not constantly getting called for escalations and things like that. So, how did you build that delivery mechanism that you did not get sucked into it?
Sure. So when I look back and see, the one thing that probably made it happen was the right sort of a team, right? So for me, always has been that whenever I have built the team, it is almost like a family. So most of the people worked it like it is their own business. And while it was a medical travel business or it was the web business, most of the people that I'm talking about probably stayed with me for about 7, 8, 9 years. And you won't trust right now that there are still some people who are still working with me, right? From that line, right? And I brought them into this business also. And so it is people I trusted and people thought it is their business. they continuously got what they wanted from the company, and I continuously got what I wanted from them, right? So you somehow had to manage that thing very well, because sometimes you feel they have been unreasonable in demanding, but they have their own ways, right? And they expect something much more bigger to you. So you have to give your share of the portion to them if you want that thing to be happening out there. So one side they had an homely environment, another side they had a complete success and a growth coming in, and they were always given the priority over what I will take home versus what they can take home. And that built in a team which took care of most of the things. At the same time, I always believed in automating things rather than developing everything. So at one point of time, we said that 20% customization, 80% we'll use the product that we have, right? Because the customization in this space was the pain, and everything that we were building, we were putting time while building rather than putting time after building. And that's basically was a success formula. So if somebody comes to us, I used to make everything in 3 months, and that is because I knew everything what will be a plug and play in that. So we used to give a presentation to a guy and say, this is how it is. Even the best of the marketing and the CEO could not imagine that we have more tools and more ways to tell him how he can grow the business than he could think. So he used to leave it to us, and we used to build that tool, use 80% of what we have already done and 20% customize for him, and then home. And niche, if I decided to use it and I had a client like travel plus education plus healthcare plus services plus this plus that, I would have failed in my business, because creating and doing it again and again the same job perfectly also helped to scale. So these are few things that I realized actually helped in. If you would have asked me in 20 probably 2009 10, I would have not had this answer, right? Today when I go back, I realize that what worked, right? And it is very hard to say at that point of time that what is working for you. But I realized these are few things that actually stayed with me. And somehow, while you are a person who are developing, coming out of school, dropped out, building a business, no formal trainings and stuff like that, you're just learning, right? And when you look at back to your success, you start to realize that there's something you did right, right? And you should know it because you should stick to it, right? So when I look back, then I realize, okay, this is your personality, this is your persona. A lot of people come back to you and say, no, you are a soft guy and you should not talk to the people so softly, this and that. But actually, if you go back, your success is completely driven by that, so you should not change it. And that's how everybody reflects back, and I reflect back today and see it. So
So
yeah.
I understand niche, like you focus and you say no to irrelevant clients, choose your clients wisely. I understand what you said in terms of automation, like have a modular approach, build things in modules, and then you can
Yeah.
pick and choose the modules to create a customized solution.
Yeah.
On the people front, do you have some more suggestions in terms of how did you select that person who was an asset to you? Because not every person will respond to the family environment. The family
Sure.
environment alone may not be the answer here.
Yeah.
So
So
I would
yeah.
dig a little deeper there.
Sure. So I would probably say, rather than selecting people, I built people, right?
Okay.
And most of these time, I have not selected people who were already built. I actually selected people and built them. I still remember there was one marketing guy that I hired for sales, and the day he joined, we gave him the laptop, right? And you used to have an IBM laptop. We used to have a lock in the front, right? So that guy sat. I gave him the laptop, and I said, "This is what we do, and you will do the marketing and all." And he was looking here and there, and after 5 7 minutes I realized he doesn't know how to open that lock and open that laptop. So
Okay.
right, and that guy stayed with me for 11 years, right? The reason being because he understood that this guy knew me day one, that I don't even know the laptop and I'm coming in a web company to sell a web product or a software product, but he teached me from how this mouse is used to how to sell websites or softwares, right? So a lot of people that continued with me were built in house, were learning with me, and I was also learning with them, right? Sometimes I go to used to sit with them and say, how do you use this software? I want to learn it, I want to also make, and then go home, build something and show them next day, this is what I have done. So it was like that sort of a learning environment. But at the same time, I think the reason for that is, when you try to make people homely, um, it was not like there is no gap between you and them, right? you try to bridge that up, but at the same time, when it is on work, it is completely professional. When it is outside work, it's a friendly environment. But at the same time, the other guy is thinking that I am actually growing with this particular person, and he's giving me that particular time, and that growth probably led people to stick, right? So that is more important, because lot where I have seen people in coming in from a lot of toxic environments. They say this company is doing great, but the boss is really toxic or the environment is really toxic. And sometimes he's very soft, and sometimes he just speaks like in the front of 10 people and make me feel like why I'm working in this company. But this is his style of working. I adopted my style of working, stating that day one, because it is a very humble beginning and very small start. Day one, I realized that everybody is actually starting like me. And at the same time, one day he would also like to be what I am doing. And a lot of people took me for inspiration because uh, I never shied away talking to them, even if my journey in 2009-10 stating that where I'm coming from, right? And how we started. And there used to be a loss also for that, because a lot of people who used to come for a smaller time used to think, if this guy can build, I can also build. So
Yeah,
there was an offshoot companies, right? So every person used to leave, and next day I used to hear that he's starting the similar sort of a company, because he started to believe that if he can do, because he's explaining he's starting from 2 lakh, I have 4 lakhs, I can also start. So this used to happen. But I was happier for them, and they used to do it and come back and say, oh, we can't build because we realize that something that we need to learn more, right? So I think that's where the crux of this lies.
Was your bet on people random, or was there a system to how you selected people? So you're saying you selected people who were not trained and you trained them for the role. You helped them grow into the role. The
Yeah.
way of selecting, what was that?
So the way of selecting was clear. One is I always used to look at hunger, right? I could do it because I had an hunger. If my dad's business was running perfectly fine, I would not have been what I am today, right? I would have been maybe another spoiled kid, or probably somebody who's been an average, and probably working on a wealth of the parents that has given in. So I always, first thing that I look in a person is that hunger, and why does it that hunger exists, right? Does he has a loan on his head? Does he has something that he wants to support his family? Does he wants to really, really prove his point to somebody? And that's basically my trigger points. Until unless I see these, probably my selection does not happen, because there are a lot of people who used to come to us and say, oh, I've done an MBA from so and so college. My dad has given me this. He has a very great business, but still I want to do something of my own. And next day used to say, no, I think I could join my dad's business back again. So,
Right.
so that was very important, because I just copied on what I learned from my own story, stating that if you really have a need behind you, you get focused, you don't see things around, and you get to work, right? And you know something or you don't know something is a secondary for me. But if you have that, you would probably figure out a way. And I used to always say entrepreneurship, Rajri, for me is the entrepreneurs jump off the cliff and assemble the plane in between to land safely. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's the case. So I used to hire people on the basis of their hunger, and then used to see if I can train and make them. And that's what I've done all my life. So and in between that, I've got people who have also taught me, right? And they have some or the other good skills that I could learn in from, right? So that worked for me.
Okay. Let's come back to 2013. So you exited, you sold both those businesses.
Yeah.
You had some money in the bank from those sales. What did you want to do next?
Yeah. So usually when I had this money in the bank, obviously when your money is churning out and everything, first I have to settle down everything, the debtors, creditors, taxes, this, that, and all, sorted out everything out there. And the back of the mind mentality was very clear that, like I have built and thought about medical travel, there's something that I can rebuild into a healthcare industry still, and I don't want to go out of the industry. And my skill still remains with me, which is that combination of a tech and understanding of healthcare. And now another trigger at the back of my mind that I don't want to get into a curative treatment business. This is something that I want to do something else. So the first thing that I did is I hired a market research company, and I told them that I need some research and I want to work on certain things and I want to understand how does it works. At the back of my mind, I said, if this is the biggest problem that I could see and the patient would be feeling, and that's what is relating to me, then the only thing that I want to do is to save people from landing into hospitals. And that became a really opposite of a purpose of what I was doing, because that is the only trigger I had at that point of time. So I just went in with that kind of a brief. And I said, boss, I just wanted to understand, why do people land into hospitals? At what age? And why do they are not prepared for why they are landing into hospitals? At the same time, if the answer for that is that they have some underlying disease, because of that disease, they have to get into a hospital. So, is there a way that underlying disease can be identified, or at least a triggers could be moved and all that stuff? So, that's how the basic brief is. They did some research, they came back with the first level of things. And then I realized, okay, there's something called screening of people, which we can do. And that screening can help them detect much early in life. And that detection would be the one. So I said, rather than screening, can I do something which is a tech based solution? Right. So I decided that, okay, let's do something which is tech based. Right. And at that point of time, there was a generation which was coming for Groupon, Snapdeal, and all those stuff very heavily internationally and locally and all. So one sudden day, my wife told me that there is everything for a deal, where you can go experience something, you can get something. Why don't you make something like that for healthcare? And I told her that, see, in the life we have made so many things for so many people, the products and everything, but we know only 1 or 2% of the people were able to successfully sell the product, right? And we had some examples like India Mart or maybe Shadi.com and all those stuff in the back end, and then some more portals working like Snapdeal and all those stuff. So it is a very less chance of anything running in on the portal side. But she insisted. So I created something called health check deals, right? And this was launched in say end of 2013 with the simple thing, because I had a connection in the hospital. So I sent an email to everyone. You give me your packages. I want to post those packages online. People will come. You give me some discount. They will download the voucher, land into a hospital or a clinic, get a test done, and you give me the report. The idea behind that is I will collect all the reports and I will do some analytics over it, and I will just help them to say, boss, you are going on a wrong track. You need this, and stuff like that. And that was the first thing. So my developers, couple of them, my designers, some of my people shifted to this particular company, and we started to build something like this. And a health check team came in live end of 2013, right? Once we launched it, people were coming in, people were taking vouchers. When they used to go to the hospital used to say, no, we don't recognize it because front end people were something else, back end people were something else, and stuff like that. And we started to realize that ultimately people are actually coming online and people are using it because they value some discount everywhere. And it's a discount sort of a market. But at the same time, the experience landing in there needs to be better and better. And sometimes, because we are not a big player for them, the hospital does not take a pain of educating everyone sitting at the counter. And that's why the experience goes bad.
And like the
but while I was
redeemed.
Yeah, the coupons are not redeemed and stuff like that. While I was doing that, it is somewhat in February and March of 2014 when I was meeting with people, talking to my friends, doctors, and everything else. And within those talks, it very clearly came out with all those research coming in by that time also. It clearly came out that probably when it comes to healthcare, sometimes the name deal does not help, right? And it is not giving any purpose to anyone. They were just saying that actually I'm coming to you because you give something much cheaper. But who is looking at cheaper solutions when it comes to their own health, right? Somebody who could not afford, right? And at the same time, still, if somebody could not afford, they find the cheap solution. But at the back of the mind, they find that, if have I taken something which is really, really discounted, and that is why they're not serviced well in the hospitals. So that month we went back to the drawing board and said, no, this won't work. We have to probably do something else, and we can't use this particular name. And we moved to say that rather than this, we would now move and take away all the hospitals, and we'll only do diagnostics and the labs, the smaller, bigger labs and everything else in that aggregation model. And the purpose, through my consultant and everything, start to believe in terms of they're saying, okay, you want to help people not land into hospitals. This is what you want to do. In basically, you want people to be healthy, and that is where Healthy Indians came together and the Healthians got formed. And out of 300, 400 names we searched at that point of time, this came out to be a very, very startling name to us, stating that this basically defines what we mean to say. So there are civilians, there are Americans, there are people who are healthy, and there are healthy Indians, which are called Healthians. And that's where the name got born in April of 2014. And we said on 7th April 2014, we will launch this new name with a new website, which was called World Health Day. And that's where the first time Healthians came to light. And so this was a start of how we thought it. But at the same time, it was still that there was a different sort of a lab. People will come onto the platform, and people will probably search, and people will go to a particular lab, or the lab will come to them, and probably the reports will come to us, because we, at the end of the day, wanted to be a tech-enabled platform so that we can use these reports and give solutions around that. So we continued like that.
Something like a discovery, like a Just Dial.
Largely discovery platform, and where you can actually make the payment offline, but you can actually book online, stuff like that. So we continued with that, and started to get business also, and started to get business to the different sort of labs as well. And so there was a lab in Mumbai, which was probably the third, fourth largest chain in India, and we were giving them sort of 100, 200 orders a day also at some point of time by end of 2014. But the similar problem came in that they were also collecting only 55% of that, right? And I had to actually, when I was looking at it, I was saying, I'm spending the money, the guys are also coming in, but I could only retain in this sort of a people, why is this happening and all. So I flew and met the CEO of the company. And when I spoke to him, he said, see, I have so many years of experience in this space, but logistic is a problem for me, right? Because I don't go, the other guy goes, and sometimes he just does not listen and does not reaches on time and does it properly. So because it is non-owned, testing we can do anytime, but logistics is always a problem. And your problem is that you give me a lead and I have to go and collect, and that's the issue. So I realized that the fourth largest person in the entire industry has logistic as an issue, then it is not going to serve a purpose, because people will write feedbacks on our website for somebody who's not been able to do, and that's their service. And that's where we wanted to do our first pivot, because this is the time when I started to think that should I continue this model or should I close down? And it was like some of my hard money was continuously going in a good flow here, because the development was happening, people were on field and this and that and everything. And I started to realize,
revenue? Were you charging the
we were making revenue. Yeah, we were making revenue, but that revenue was not suffice enough to take off salaries and everything else.
Obviously.
And I was losing every month. I was putting money every month. So I created my mindset and said, oh, okay, let's do one thing. I will just try this for another 3 months and put this many lakhs into it. If it doesn't work, then probably I have to think something else. And we started to work on something different this time. And this particular visit of mine gave me a lot of education in terms of, and while I was in flight all 2 hours, 3 hours, I was just thinking. And I realized that, Deepak, you have done technology, you have done services in terms of providing web application technology services, but you have never done healthcare services yourself. You have never been a service guy, right? And this is the time now you want to think that you want to get into services or you want to remain in technology. And if you remain in technology, this is going to not work for you. So you better find out something else, or you service it yourself. And that 2 hours made me somehow give me a confidence of saying that if logistic is the issue in this industry, I have to get myself into service. And that's the first time Healthians decided that it will become an end-to-end diagnostic business than being an aggregator or a tech business. And that was our first pivot. I did that pivot in February. From immediately 20 cities of service, I came down to only one, which is Gurgaon. From so many orders, we came down to 0. And we started to build our thing where we hired our own phlebos. We said, we will collect the sample and we'll take this sample.
Phlebo, for people who don't know, phlebo is the phlebotomist who comes and collects your blood, who can draw blood, so who's trained for that.
Yeah, so he's a sample collector and he's a trained guy, and he comes at home and collects the sample. We saw that anyways people are ordering for it and we were giving it to somebody else, and that way I was not able to pick. So let me pick myself and then decide who will test. And then lately I will also decide where to test. But let's solve one problem first. And that's the whole idea of using tech using healthcare and again going into an automated process so that you don't have to build again, went in there. It took 6 months for us to crack down entire phlebotomy or entire collection processes, including building the bag for them, including how they will look, how they will go, how they will speak, how the tech will work and stuff like that. And good 8 months is probably day and night of work to just sort this piece out. But the initial root shoots were very, very clear because my guy was going, so I was confident. I was like almost with him on phone. Have you reached? Okay. Have you picked? So every service is like perfect. And at the same time, the consumer at the other end has never expected that this kind of a service can happen, because healthcare always thought that patients need them, right? And they're never been treated as a customer, but they're always been treated as patients. And that is the change that I wanted to bring, because that actually led me to coming out of that particular industry, that treat them as to be somebody who's a customer, and you need them rather than they need you. And that's where the service angle started to build in, and people started to appreciate about this guy who's coming in. And we were evolving. We were just giving him a lot of training. We used to give him grooming kits. This is how you should look. This is how you should smell. This is how you should open your shoes. When you get inside, your socks should be new, stuff like that. Because every small integral details actually was about making that person feel that this guy is never been experienced like that earlier. And behind that, it was a tech to probably build in and know that this guy is going home. So first we sorted that puzzle. Once that puzzle was sorted,
one or two questions here on how you sorted
Please.
that puzzle. Did you hire them on payroll or was it per pickup?
Every time we hired till now on payroll. And
Okay.
while I have a largest team in India for phlebotomists and sample collectors today, and they're all on payroll.
Okay. But isn't this a industry where there is a concentration? Most of the times I get a test done, it needs to be done in the morning because you have like some fasting that you do overnight.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'm sure morning would be like super peak, and then rest of the day there wouldn't be much work for them.
Yeah. So absolutely. So this industry works from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. sort of a stuff. And we used to repurpose them after 1 p.m. at that point of time. So they used to be at a client's house or a customer's house by 6 a.m. The first pickups used to start. And usually by 10:30, most of the pickups used to end. And they have to come back to the lab, deposit the sample and everything. And then we used to repurpose them after 1. So they used to sit in the lab, scan samples. Some used to come and staple the report. Some used to print the report. Some used to put it into an envelope. So all of them were repurposed after 1 p.m.
Okay,
Right.
Okay. Very interesting.
But I was very, very clear that I need to hire them, because till that time, this industry was, I met a phlebo who was 10-year experienced. He said, I joined at 9,000 rupees. I am still at 10,500 rupees in 9 years. And it is totally dependent upon my variability of how many samples I get. So this guy was not growing in his life, and I knew most of them, and I knew thousands of them for myself. So I had to probably plan their career well, and that was only can be done when he's sure of that this much money is coming into his bank every month fixed. And that is why I had to hire them. And that is why he was committed to going on time. That is why he was committed to deliver what I wanted to deliver. And so we sorted that piece out completely in the first 6-7 months, and we knew that it is coming on track, and now we need to scale.
You
so
probably had
also-
to build an app for the phlebos because they
Day
would
one,
scan
this was
and,
built.
like tracking which sample
absolutely.
belongs to which
So-
patient, all that.
So this entire thing was this phlebo, which is a human touch, technology, which was an app, and tools, which are like this kit. This kit was GPS enabled. This kit had temperature control.
Okay.
This kit has a entire PKOK technology, which I learned from Japan.
What
Which means
technology? Sorry, PK.
it is called it is called PKOK. It is actually created by Honda, which basically means that the same task has to be repeated every time in a similar fashion without missing a step. So it is stepwise manner. It goes in stepwise manner as it comes back. So because we are opening a bag in the consumer house, there is a big possibility that we leave one thing in the consumer house, in the second consumer house, we will not be able to find it. Third consumer house, something will happen. So you have to build a technology and a process wherein the kit bags open. Whatever has to be used first has to be kept first. Whatever has to be used last has to be rekept, and it has to be developed in that particular fashion. So you don't miss anything out. And so if he has to use a tourniquet or something that he has to pull first, that's on the top pocket. He goes from top to bottom to end of the bag, and reverse packing happens. So he starts to put the bio waste in the end of the bag, and then he comes back. And by the time he's at the last step, he knows everything is covered, so he doesn't misses the step. And that's how we built it.
Like probably the gloves
And
would be right on top because that's the first thing he needs to.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So even after closing the bag, the top pocket used to be the billing and everything, because after collecting the sample, it used to happen that way, right? So it is like a 20-30 iteration of the bag has happened before we finalize this particular thing. And we even applied for a patent in India. Getting a patent for such thing was very, very difficult because we knew everybody will copy it at some point of time. So, but they said it's just the bag. So how can you patent it, right? Unless you probably do the fabric yourself or everything else yourself, which we were not doing. We were actually using a manufacturer to do that. But we still built that, and that became overnight success for us in terms of people. We did not used to tell to people how we have built it, but people used to realize there's something which is good about it because the service is happening the same way every time. So once that piece was sorted, we knew there is another big challenge in this space, which is accuracy, right? We are getting into an industry and we are trying to do the service, and we are a very newbie. And this is a credible industry of credibility and trust. And unless you have a credibility and trust, nobody will probably come back to you. And as the model basically talks about, as I said, it was always on the preventive side of it. So when you are on a preventive side of it, the model was completely developed direct to consumer, which means it was actually eliminating all the middle layers. And that eliminating middle layers means anybody who's referring, even including the doctors, somewhere were not interfering in between how the patient is deciding to take a test and we being collecting that. And we knew that this is going to be a bigger challenge. And from start of the model till early 2015, I faced almost 12 rejections only on one thing, that you're trying to build a diagnostic business. We understand that your model is okay, but you're trying to build a diagnostic business without including doctor in between is something that we don't think can be built in India. And you will probably lose the business and you will not be able to build this business. So better we will not fund. And that kept on happening one after another. And I kept on stating that I came from that place. They are my friends. And I understand how that industry works. If I have to go back to that place, then why did in first place I came to this? And that did not let me, even after 12 rejections, to go back and think that I have to build a business with them, right? Or same business, because it was, again, then you are in an environment. And in that environment, the mistrust is too high, right? And I didn't want to build that way. So I kept on with a lot of perseverance, up and downs, doubts in my own mind, but kept on building that. And with this green shoots of Lebo going home, people deciding up and everything else, I started to build in. And I knew that probably there will be a time where people would say, okay, this is fine because you've done it. But the report when comes to the doctor, and the doctor probably says, "Boss, kahan se kara ke aaye ho? This is not the report that I want to look at." Then everything goes for a toss, right? And that was a very, very big challenge because you need to be first assured of your own quality. So I had to create something very internally. So we internalized the process. We said, we need to reach to a stage where I can freely test my own family and family members at Healthians lab. That's the day we should say we have made it. And if I don't have that confidence, because my family member will take a decision on that diagnosis, till that time we have not done it. And while we were working with partners during that particular time, we'll take a sample, take it to a lab. That lab used to give a report in Healthians format and Healthians name. Nobody used to know which lab is this. But at the same time, we knew this guy at the back end is trying to make money. Sometimes he can cut corners, he can do something wrong. He would not look at quality as a parameter, and my name is stuck to it. So I have to anyways build that arm also. So it took us next 1 year to sort that piece out of slowly knowing and understanding from zero knowledge about labs, machine and machinery in diagnostics to start to build that. And building a team for that. Yeah, we were still in Gurgaon. And then we started to spread Delhi NCR slowly, like South Delhi first, North Delhi first, and then this thing. But at the same time, we had only 2, 3, 4 labs in with a tie-up, which is a back-end lab. We were giving samples to them and they were giving reports in our name. And we knew that we have to somehow develop. First, it was like a very, you can say, a partner sort of contract relationship, Then it got deeper relationship because they got dependent upon us. Then it even went to a stage where my guys started sitting in their labs to monitor the quality. And then it even went to a stage where my guys was running the sample in their own lab, in their lab, right? So one by one, we was taking control of over them because we wanted to assure of, and our business was increasing. So we were a majority stakeholder in a way in terms of their portion of business. But at the same time, I was still not satisfied because it is not me. It is somebody else. Tomorrow he can probably go to another player, third player, or he will cut corners. Or after I leave the lab, what this does with the entire lab, I don't know. So that's
But,
where we started to.
The lab would have probably given you credibility. And why I'm saying this is because the first time I used Healthians, I received some update that your sample has reached Apollo. And just seeing that my sample has reached Apollo gave me confidence that, because I didn't know what is Healthians. This was before all the massive amount of fundraise and all. But that confidence came in because that message reached me that your sample has reached Apollo. And
Yeah.
so that must have helped.
Yeah. No, so I think the when you really look at what happens is when a consumer gets to know, because he could be a different consumer who had that sort of a confidence, but the consumer gets to know that I'm actually connecting Healthians, and the guy comes and takes the sample, and finally it goes to Apollo, right? So why not call Apollo directly, because maybe they are making margin in between, and
Okay.
and we knew that the moment that is being there, the call goes next to the Apollo, right? So actually on your cost and your effort, you're building businesses for other. And that used to be the thing. And you are not becoming a brand. You are also being considered only a logistic player who will pick the
Yes.
sample and deliver. So we
Absolutely.
never wanted to be a logistic player. We wanted to be a diagnostic player because the purpose at the back of the mind was still the same. That we will help people to test, screen, and then monitor, and then use our tech to improve, right? Which will in hand help them to not land into hospitals. That's where the whole scenario was going on. And until as we do the complete cycle of the service, the purpose was not getting achieved, right? On a third party's dependency. So, and we knew that these labs and everybody else, the more I was getting deeper, I saw this to be much more unorganized, much more deeper of what I don't know about it, and much more, you would say, cutting corners in a lot of senses, even at the bigger level or a smaller level and stuff, which realized me that there is a big space that I could achieve and I can actually deliver some quality results out. And I still remember we created a line at that point of time, क्योंकि बात accuracy की है. So Healthians basically used to say क्योंकि बात accuracy की है. At the end of the day, I used to always internally say, if we cannot deliver accurate results, then we should not be in this business. And we can do some other business, because this is the minimum hygiene of this business. While it is not understood for many people, because there was a lot of this thing, there used to be sync tests, there used to be people not testing most of the tests and stuff like that. And there was no transparency in the space also. Somebody is charging 700 rupees. So sync test used to be a term wherein people used to take a blood sample, put it into a sink, and used to give you a report.
Okay.
Okay, and there was some unorganized labs, there was some players who used to do that, right? Which is like the sample did not reach the machine itself. So this space had a lot of transparency issue. This space has a lot of cutting corners, and this space has a lot of scope for doing anything wrong, right? So within that space, the idea was to create something which is much more transparent, control in the patient's hand, and the trustworthiness that comes in with it, right? And that is why every solution that you see today has been built for that only. Things like you giving the sample, knowing where it is going, knowing the temperature of the sample, when does it reach the lab, who's the guy coming to you, getting a report, knowing at which machine it got tested, what was the value of the machine, getting a machine data if you needed, and stuff like that. But initially, today it looks like simple. But that time, to convince somebody to take our report to a doctor and make a decision on it was a very difficult task. Right. So a preventive guy who has nothing, probably just testing some of the things is okay. But the guy who has to take a decision on it, he would probably think 10 times because it's a new company. So we had things like taglines like "Kyunki baat accuracy ki hai." At one point of time, till today, we had money back guarantee on accuracy because I wanted to be sure. The day I built my own labs, within 1 month, we launched money back guarantee on accuracy. Because I know that I have a best of machines. I will do everything possible to make the results accurate. And I will not cut corners even if I lose money. I can assure people. And if somebody says now your report is wrong, I am will 100% money back. So I said, you go to any other player, compare. If there is a difference, results, you take 100% money back.
And when did you launch your own lab, the first lab?
So the first one came in 2017, after 3 years. Start.
And
Yeah.
by this time, you
2017
had raised the round also, right? Like, I think you raised about 4 million.
Yeah. So I did first round came in 2015 when I was changing the model and pivoting the model. So it happened with UVCAN. So Yuvraj definitely was the first one who break that Zincs of 12 rejection, stating that, boss, I understand that the preventive healthcare in India is largely required. And if you can save lives, there's nothing better than that. And let's do it. You have me, you have my soul, you have my money, and let's build it together. And this was like hardly 6 hours of meeting, and he decided that I will do this.
He gave you like his celebrity endorsement also in addition to money?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
So he said, you have me, you have my endorsement, you have my money also. So I will be with you whichever way you want to. And he never said that why, or there has to be a contract in which you will define what I will do and what I will not do. And he was a star at that point of time. He was like he was an iconic star at that point of time, right?
True.
So, but he did not, because he was attached to the entire passion, because he came out of cancer and he knew early screening, early detection, how can it save life, and nothing better than that. And it's one way of giving back also. And he saw somewhat my experience and my passion. So we immediately shook hands, and in a few months we could sign up the deal. The money came in. And post that we did pre-series A 1 year later. Then we did a series A in 2016. And there has been chances between 2017-18 wherein there was times where we were ending up with the money because we were building something continuously, looking at quality, looking at things, expansion and all other stuff. And the prices that we wanted to enter the market was very, very honest sort of a price. We didn't want to market up too high. We were almost 40-50% lesser than what the market was charging at that point of time. Reason being, we knew there's a lot of middleman commissions that goes in. So we wanted to really eliminate that. And that is why it was not like we were making too much money and it was a profitable business in some sort of this thing. And we needed continuous money to build something which is very, very large and scale it very, very large. But otherwise, a lot of people won't afford. Or the moment the preventive test becomes expensive, people will start avoiding it, is what we knew from our research time, right? So it had to be very clearly convenient. It had to be very clearly affordable. It had to be very clearly transparent, and it had to be very clearly reliable for them. If this is not there, then people will not take preventive tests. People will rather wait for a disease to happen or a symptom to happen, and then only will go there. And so that we could not leave on and could not increase those prices also. But we continuously raised. There was a time in 17-18 before, in between our series A and B, wherein we were left with a very small sort of a few months runway, 2-3 months. But everything moved on in a right direction because we knew we are doing the things right. And at a very last stage, probably we could hit another round. And I think post that, this is like 2017-18 and today 23, 4-5 years, sufficiently funded and never had to look back from there. But these were early stages wherein you are building. People are just saying, will you track on to something that you have built? Will it scale it that way into a very, very competitive sort of a market? Was the issues, the questions being asked to us in a model which is different than the model people have built. So
by the time you raised Series B, what was your ARR?
By the time we raised Series B, we were closer to, I think, 76 crores annual revenue.
Okay. And I guess that revenue itself is proof enough that this model works. Like the initial questions you were facing about, does this model work? And you need to monetize through doctor consultation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, for me, there's a thing that I had a learning again. It wasn't when I told you that at time of medical travel also, there was something which was giving me very clear directions in terms of this will work. While there was no market that existed, today it's a $5 billion market for India. Similarly, I knew that there is a space for people choosing their own test. There's a space where chronic and preventive patients will first go directly to the lab. There's a space, even a prescription will go directly to the lab, and that is something that we can create. It was also coming in from a lot of experience that I had, that this industry, in terms of where the whole market is targeting, was a B2B dominant industry. Right? 50 years in India, you look at any lab, The one who are more than 2 decades have created a large business. The one who have come in last 1 decade, they have not been able to really create a business which is more than 100, 150 crores. The one who have come in the last 5, 7 years have not been able to scale even more than 10 crores. Reason, it is a large B2B space wherein people are only dependent upon prescriptions to be written by those doctors and come to them, and that's the only channel they want to build. And that channel is actually saturating. We don't have too many doctors coming in India every year. We have very less people writing prescription. We don't have people who are becoming older and symptomatic. Our population is very, very young, under 30, 50%. All these scenarios are very, very clearly defining that if you go after a curative market, you will just beat the bushes. You will not get anything in your hand because somebody has already acquired that account. And that acquired account is already integrated with them, has a much more credibility and trust. You have to do something new if you want to enter this space. And that is why I knew that is a recipe to failure, right? But then again, when the industry looks at it, any new model or fresh model has to bear its own pains. It always will be questioned. It always will have its issues. It always will be compared. And but if you know your model is correct, or you know that you can build it, and your sixth sense, your intuition is behind that, I think finally you win the game. And that's where 2017-18, we were able to establish, guys, see, this is how it is building, and it is scaling much faster till today than any other player. If the industry grows at 5-10%, we grow at 50%.
Wow.
Right. So there's
what's
a
your
space
ARR
that we
now?
have built. So we're close to 500 crores now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me about that, Delhi NCR to multi-city. How did you navigate that journey? When did you decide that we are now mature enough to go to second city?
Yeah. So 2017 is when we thought that the model in Delhi NCR is clear. We have learned it. It's something now can be scaled. So we only launched one city, which was Mumbai first. And then after a year in 2018, we launched a city called Bangalore, right? So if you really look at from our journey from 2014, 2018, and even start of 19, it was hardly 3-4 cities, right? And in the last 4 years, we've added 210. So it went in like boosting scales in terms of every week there is a city launch happening, because the playbook was written. We know how to get to that particular customer. And we also never wanted to be a North-centric lab. We always want to be a pan-India player. Because in India today, our diagnostic is still considered to be geographical specific. The guy who's strong in North, one is South in South, West is West. We wanted to break that barrier also. Somehow it was always there in mind that whatever not been done in this space, let's do everything and then create a new space for it, right? And that is why rather than choosing to be another city in North, we first went to West, and then we went to South, and then we started expanding North too in everything. To make that division and see that if we can run the business in the most competitive market, and within that North market also, where one player has 70% stake and he's the largest player in India, we get into a competition with him and build a business which can run in Delhi NCR, means we can do it anywhere in India. But the nuances of every city would be different, and we'll be able to scale that. So we created the playbook.
This competitor, you talk about Thyrocare.
But Thyrocare is a bit small, right? So number one player today, that time, obviously North dominated players, Dr. Lal, right? And they are the largest in the space.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're the largest in this space.
Okay.
And 70% of their almost 1,500 crore business, at that time it used to be 1,000 crore business. 70% of that business comes from North only.
Okay.
So they were so well placed.
And they are in preventive or curative?
No.
Like you,
they're completely the same B2B model. That's a complete curative model.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would have some sort of incentivization plan with a doctor to generate prescriptions for the tests.
See, for some players who have been really, really there in that particular space, I can't comment if they had the model or this thing. But obviously, they had created an inroads wherein a doctor would probably say, okay, you want to get tests done, go to this lab. And that is more than a recommendation, right? Is it because of, it could be because of the trust and credibility they have created over the years. It could be because of any sort of incentivization. But that's something that was working for them. And that is why being more older actually was helping in this space. New player will never be able to do that, right? So that is why the older player is growing. The new player was not growing in this space. And I could see it from outside, but still, having said that, in 2024, people still build labs and people still do B2B. and people still say that we will create a 200 crore business, right? They could not see from the lens where I could see it from, and that is the reason I don't see any company coming over that mark. In fact, anybody who's been scaling up there is not growing 1-2%, and finally they're consolidated and they're selling their businesses to large players, because for me that business will not grow.
Interesting. So who is competing with you in preventive, like at scale? Redcliffe?
See, I would say if you really look at when we came in 2015 and raised our first round with UVCan, almost 10 companies came.
Okay.
By that time, the news media used to cover us as aggregator, right?
Right.
And it is said that whenever in India somebody raises the money, 20 people start the same business. So people started it. And they, rather than knowing what we do, they just saw what we were named in the media. We were said as an aggregator of labs.
Right.
Everybody started aggregation. We by that time already moved to end-to-end, and nobody was knowing that we were actually building end-to-end. And that is why out of those 10 companies that came, 8 got closed. Right? So some came to us to do that, and some dismantled because they were not able to raise money and they had their own issues, and they were not from healthcare largely. So they could not understand how to fine-tune their model too. And that is why they closed. Then the another thing over the time came in when it was 16, 17, 18 sort of a stuff, right? Wherein the players who were doing something else said, we will also want to do diagnostics, right?
Yeah, like
so it is like pharma
e-pharmacy.
getting into diagnostic, e-pharmacy is getting into diagnostic. They said it's a good business, it's a very, this thing can be done online, same customer will buy it and stuff like that. So they came and created a lot of pressure. Finally, because they already had one bleeding business, they could not have another. And it's like focusing on 2 business, and we were focused in one. So a lot of investors came to us also that you start pharmacy if they can start diagnostics. I said, sorry, it is one business that I can do, and it has to be a focus business, healthcare. It's not e-commerce. It is not something selling a t-shirt. It's like you have to be very, very focused onto an effort. And that's where they all tried, but they could not scale. Some did well, some reached to a certain stage, but they struggled. Some are still doing it, but that's not their primary business. It's always about giving something else to their existing customers. Then the new layer came in COVID time, because the market was really hot. People know COVID has diagnostics and stuff like that. And we raised our largest round at that point of time. Yeah.
Yes.
And we also raised the largest round, and we were scaling like anything. So it is like those sort of in a year, if I talk my journey, we were hitting from 76 crore to directly 167 crore to 234 crore sort of a number. And COVID was not the part of it, right? We were not selling COVID tests. It was our main business, routine test, which was actually growing. People tried to make money through COVID, introduced COVID and made COVID money. We never focused on COVID. We focused on our core thing because we knew it is a short-lived layer. You will build so much infrastructure.
Why did you grow so much during COVID years then? Like, what was the reason?
So one is that people were at home, and we were the largest company that can collect from home, number one. Number two, the essential test that you knew that the most risk that you play is going into a hospital or a lab this time, because it's a COVID. So for anything that you needed our service.
Okay.
And the another catch 22 situation here is, if my phlebos also start doing COVID, then people will think that the same guy is coming my home used to go to a COVID house, and they will not call me. So I had to specifically market them clearly that my people does not go and do COVID tests, right?
Okay.
And that is why my routine business obviously went. People appreciated this particular service the most, and the people who were still going to the labs, going to the collection centers, actually at this point of time, they shifted to go online. And they said, no, I want a person to come home. And then they never went back to the lab after COVID, because they realized this particular service is much better than I have never experienced. And I'm getting it at home. Why do I have to go out? And that is a change of behavior, which also helped to jump on that sort of a revenue for us.
Okay. So
I was telling that during this particular time, this particular time, because a lot of funding was available, we made the largest round. There's another 2-3 companies that came in, right? And obviously it's still that particular time going on. Some are still playing and figuring out this thing, but we always had a early mover advantage. When we came into this space, we had nothing to learn from, right? But unfortunately, nobody has also innovated after us. So what I see going back in most of the things, because I also want to learn from people who are doing good, but I could not go back and see anything differently happening in the space, or somebody has tried to relook at it. There are two reasons. One, there are very less people who got into this space comes from a healthcare industry, right? The one who comes from the healthcare industry goes to the B2B angle of building labs, and then that B2C angle is being done by people, but they don't come with that healthcare brain. So they take it as e-commerce, put a lot of money, advertise, burn, and then go ahead that direction. So most of it is a follow-on of how do my guy goes, my website looks, my package come in. I brought in $9.99 sort of a price into this industry. Today, the whole industry says $9.99 full body checkups. The whole prevention came in there. Whatever you keep on innovating, from flebos to offers to the way we service, the way we provide services and stuff like that. From Instagram ads to everything else, you would probably now see a flooded industry working on that directions, right? Less innovations probably. But because we did it and we were ahead of the curve, we were continuously innovating. First one to launch a smart report in this industry. First one to launch smart report version 2, 3, 4. First one to launch
what does a smart report do?
So smart reports is a 40-page report, which basically gets over and above your 15-20-page whole body checkup report, but analyze everything for you, gives you a historical trend, graphical chart, analyze your data, and also gives you feedback into in a layman's language where a doctor will not be able to explain, or only a doctor can explain, right? So you are very, we learned that you have a lot of anxiousness, your anxiety is high when you are given a blood test and your report is coming. And anything coming in bold, probably you go on Google and try to search, and it shows that you have a cancer, right? So not everything is a cancer.
Right.
So that anxiety is something that we wanted to kill, and we created a smart report which basically explains everything in a layman language and tell the person this is what it is, this is what your next step is, this is what it means, how severe it is, the scoring system on everything and all. So this is like 2015. We made another version of it, then we made an AI version of it, then we made a further version of it. And people still are making in a larger labs and everything, because the doctors started going back to the market and say, why don't you bring these kind of reports? And then everybody had to follow up. And still large players are figuring out the way to have these smarter reports. Some have developed it, some are still doing it. But we are again way ahead of that particular curve. And that's, at least I would say, we take proud in at least doing 10 first time in industry things that never has been done in diagnostics. Starting from pre-barcoded vials, wherein the people used to write till the time I entered the space from a pen on a vial, right? We brought a barcoded because there were 4% error in terms of exchange of people, and that's a nominal this thing, right? We wanted to make it a zero error this thing, so we brought in a barcode vial. Tracking system, we brought in the live reports, we brought in temperature tracking, we brought in things like doctor consultation after the report, right? And the whole reminding system
as a free service, doctor consultation.
It's a free service. Doctor consultation, since day one, it was always a free service. Because idea, again, if you go back, while we developed our purpose and changed our purpose and evolved it over a time, but it was always about making sure that this guy does after something about the report. So the another thing that I always used to say, that diagnostic industry ends at giving the report. They say, my job is done. Whatever you want to do, you do. My job is done. I say, no, this is not where it ends. It is where it starts. Because you've just given a report. The guy just sees the report and keeps it in his pocket or a drawer. Does not help. He needs to know what next to be done, right? If you are in a hospital environment, that's a different story, because you will then refer it to a doctor and say, go and meet him because there's something which is there. Otherwise, he'll sit at home. So our job is to explain, boss, everything is good. Just keep it like that. Let's do it in 6 months again. Boss, this is abnormal. You're on a track. You have a family history. There's some possible issues. You should see a doctor and make sure that you take your medicines on time, and we should track in every 3 months. So that needs to be told to the guy, so that he now knows that I'm on a right track. I know how to be improved. Looking at this report, I'll do something about myself, and I will delay the disease, or I will actually stop the disease to happen, and I will not land into that hospital. And that's what the service continued to provide, that end-to-end to people. And it was included in the cost without any extra charges to these people.
Okay.
So a lot of such technology, a lot of such things kept first time in the space, which people experienced and people really valued. And that is how today we are proud to say that we have 80% plus revenue coming only from existing customers.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So
very high
very high repeat ratios, and never seen in this sort of an industry. and we sell preventive tests. It's not something that we are actually targeting somebody who is really ill, so he needs test anyways, right? And that too, that still then we have this sort of a repeat ratio is what people stick to us because they like the service and it seems to be convenient. And that's what shows and brings confidence into people, market, investors, and everybody else.
Why do VCs like this industry? As you said, a lot of players got funded in the last 2-3 years.
Very
Fairly
clearly
large amount of
because,
money.
yeah, because if you really look at the all the three IPOs that happened in this space, actually all were oversubscribed, right? All went 3x, 4x in the years to come. And during COVID times, all were trending to the best of their 13x, 14x multiples. At the same time, India is very large country, and our diagnostic industry size is still 1/7 of what China's industry size is, while the
Okay.
population is same, right?
Mm.
At the same time, it is an out-of-pocket market for a lot of people, so they have to spend the money, right? So diagnostic happens outside hospitals and not in the hospitals. And in this industry is growing, so only 3 players are listed, and only 10% of the market, totaling to the top 10, 5 or 10 organized players, is only 10% of the market. 90% is still organized. So there's a lot to happen in the space. Plus, it is a very high margin space, right? And there is also a very, very good economies of scale in this business. So unlike any other business which is asset heavy like a hospital, you have a number of beds. Once all number of beds are filled, you cannot make two people sleep on a same bed. So but in diagnostics there is machines. So same lab can do 2x, 3x, 4x volume. You just need to add few machines and few modules. You don't need anything else, and it can turn out to run 24 hours for you, and economies of scales will be way, way higher. So it is a scalable business in that trend and becomes really a choice for people internationally and globally, and not just in India. And
Also, I think
somebody
high
who could
repeat
do it,
rates.
high
Once
repeat
you
rates.
go to one player, it's unlikely that you'll change because they have your data,
Yeah.
so they can give you trend analysis that in the last 6 months this has changed.
Yeah. And unlike e-commerce, the more you grow, the more you need the service, right? So that is how it is. So the more aged you are, you would probably use us more. So your LTVs are 60, 70 years down the line and not 1 year, 2 year.
Oh, yeah. Tell me something. There is this initiative of digital health records by the government. I forget what it's called. Maybe Ayushman, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah,
But
ABDM, yes. Yeah.
yeah, so in which your health records become transferable. So
Yes.
that then is no longer a moat for a company like Healthians. Like you might have said earlier that if you keep using us, you can see historical trends of your medical records,
So-
which now they can transfer out.
Yeah. They can surely transfer out once this spend. So I think it is still 4-5 years away when everything gets integrated and there is a portability, but it is actually advantageous also, right? So today, if somebody wants to move from a hospital to me, he can actually port the data to me and I can store that data. If he wants to take that data out, it is also fine. So this decision is not on me, it is on the patient. Whomsoever he shares that particular OTP, he can transfer his data out, but there's a data in also, right? So for me also, whenever you come to get a test done for me, I'll take that particular thing from you and say, I want to do an entire report for you. And I want to, even if you have tested in 5 hospitals, 5 clinics, 5 labs, I want to combine all that data and give you a consolidated report. So rather than today, for about this 8-10 million profiles, I had to work very hard to build on my algorithms. Tomorrow it becomes easier because I get the data in. So it's an advantageous thing.
So companies with good service will win because patients will
Absolutely.
prefer to migrate. And what is the status of this health record initiative? Like, for example, are you compatible with that, and how many players?
Yeah. So we've very earlier we started to integrate. We created APIs, and we have already done. It's like a process which has to get switched on whenever we want, and we are also creating ABA IDs and stuff like that, so it can be linked to the singular health record system. And we are anyways, because we play on data, our data was anyways synchronized, standardized, to anytime probably use it in any sort of a format. And definitely that's the biggest asset that we are creating for future.
So the government is dictating some sort of standardization of data so that it can be transferable?
Not yet. They have some processes wherein you have to follow, but the standardization templates has not been created yet. But there's a thing that you should definitely be, anything which is offline should come online. The storage of the records has to be kept in a way so that it is transferred, or it has to be it is the right of a patient to take that and keep it somewhere else.
Okay. But right now it's not like numbers getting transferred, but it's like a paper document which can be transferred from one
Yeah,
player to the other. Then
absolutely.
whoever is
Absolutely.
receiving it can parse that and turn it into numbers. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Understood. And for a patient, how easy is it to, like, a patient, is
It's
it
easy
linked to
like
your
it's like a Aadhaar
phone
ID. You
number?
give your ABBA ID and you'll
Okay.
get an OTP, share that OTP, and the person will be able to download or see all the records. So probably you will have something called maybe your prescriptions, your pathology reports, your radiology reports, your scans, something like that in a category, and you can probably click and download them into your own system, and then you can access those records.
And how does so suppose I take a test from Healthians, how do you know what is my ABBA ID? Do you ask me when I pay for a test that please enter your ABBA ID, or is it linked to phone
So
number? Or?
no, so I just tell you. So we basically right now at the backend check if this particular phone number has an ID. Otherwise, we have an API to create that ID.
Okay.
So wherever you will have an access first, we'll create your automatic ID, and that same ID can then be used.
Okay.
So it is linked to a certain records, and that is why it is unique.
Okay, so it's phone number linked also. So that way, anywhere where you've given your phone number, you will have access eventually to that data. Okay. Okay, understood. Yeah, I want to wrap up with a couple of broader questions. You know, is Healthians a services business or a tech company?
So for sure, it is a service business. It's a business of care that we are in, right? But it is driven through the tech. It is delivered through the tech.
Okay, so it's a tech-enabled services business.
Absolutely.
So how does that change the way
So
you as a founder
we say
think
basically
about...
this is high tech and high touch both. So because it is healthcare, you can't leave the touch.
Okay. How does that change how you look at the business as a founder? Because as you said, say someone like a 1MG or one of these e-pharmacies, if they were to start a diagnostic business, they would say we are a tech company, whereas you are very clearly saying I'm a services company enabled by tech. So how does that change your outlook towards managing the business as a founder?
Oh, it does, because at the same time, see, it is when I say the entire service basically has something in the middle of it, which is a customer and a patient, right? And that is the guy who you need to keep in mind whenever you're building something out. As a tech business, you basically say that you come access my platform. What happens after that is basically you need to figure out, but because I just enabled you to do something, and that in ends there. So, but what India probably needed and what we wanted to build was really making a change and being a part of his health journey. And that you can't do just being a tech player. You have to have that touch base. And for us, that touch was that until unless we had this Lebo who can go home and collect the sample, or if we would have outsourced this service, we would not have built the business that we are in today. So that became the human became the element of the entire digital thing that we are trying to do. And that human touch will not go away. Probably even if the AIs and everything of the world will come, the healthcare still is the one which will probably require a human touch. And that changes your whole this thing, because you start treating people because you know you will have to face them, you will have to talk to them, you will have to behave humanly, and you have a different empathy with them over time. So it is very different than calling yourself to be tech, because then you take an excuse of a lot of things. But when you are a service enabled tech, then you use tech as to be a strength in empowering this versus your service remains at a core.
How many flavors do you have on payroll today?
We have close to 2,100.
Wow. So how do you scale that consistency of experience with a Flebo? Because from what I understand, your key service element for a customer is the Flebo experience. He decides whether a customer likes your service or not. I mean, for a customer, the service is what the Flebo is giving. So how do you...
Yeah, at least that's the first interaction, or that's the human touch. And then post that, it's an add-on of how you serve him through tech and other things. But that's the face of the company.
Right.
That's the face of the company.
How do you scale that? Making sure all 2,100 are representing the brand in the right way, giving that right kind of customer service, the right kind of politeness, right behavior, etc. Because these are like very soft elements. How do you scale that?
Absolutely. See, good part is that in our industry, most of these people are educated, right? Because it is not that you, unlike a particular rider or a driver who delivers, they get inside the home, right? and they are considered as to be one version down the doctor, sometimes by the patient, right? So they have some clinical expertise, they have studied, and they have some sort of a, you can say, an empathy, which is different than probably hiring somebody outside of the industry. So that advantage we already had. The second thing is, what they are looking at is a respect, right? What we are looking at is a service. So you have to give something and you have to take something. So we gave them a whole sort of a career growth and path, and at the same time a lot of training. And that trainings are like not just one time training, it keeps on going till now, right? Because everything keeps on developing over and over of time. So the module that we created initially was like one to one, then we digitized it, then we made it remote, then we made it like a scoring system, then we made it like a examination system, then we made it like a graduation system. So you keep on learning and you keep on building and you keep on moving ahead, and that is how the system became very, very, very standardized. But still, when a flebo is being hired, he has been tested on his technical skills, scoring on how much pain he's causing while collecting the sample. And first, that is a step. Second is his uh, uh, second is his skills in terms of talking, in terms of how experienced he are and knows the name of the test and all, where it can be trained. And if he does require training, that training can go as big as 20 days, 30 days also, right? But he has to first be technically trained. Then there is a technology training, which is like how to use an app, how to do that. So there are multiple level of
This
training,
training
and
is
then
all
further
offline. Like you have like a
is all
training
offline.
center. Okay.
Yeah. It's like all offline. Now we do a lot of training while he is studying, because we want to hire from those institutes. So there's a specific course we
Okay.
run at the end of that particular course for 1 month, so that we can train him during that and then bring him from there and know his skills and out from that particular place. But then it's a continuous cycle. So one is that when a person comes in, you have to basically tell him very clearly why he's coming in, what's the purpose of this organization. Is it to just make sales, or is it to really deliver service? And then you make a sort of a, this team for us isn't like an army. So if you talk to them, you will feel like they talk about like soldiers, right? They think they're always on a mission, and that mission is being created for them, and that's a culture for them. That mission during the COVID was seen, that mission during difficult times are seen, that mission from 6 a.m. every day is seen. Even if it is raining or it is heavy snowfall or anything, they know their mission is to reach the person's house and collect it in a form that it is their secure it in a way that's their own family member, and deposit it on time so that the results can happen. Now that culture drives in their blood right now, and that's where if you have a basic team which is set it up like this, anyone who would not adopt to it will churn out. Anyone who adopts to it gets bigger team and team and team. And that is why what they needed was a lot of respect, and what we needed was a larger team. So we created something for them so that they can actually become. So like I told you in the starting, from that 9,000, 10,000, today my flebo minimally makes 22 to 23,000. It's a fixed income. Over and above that, there are people who makes incentives. They're taking, at least a lot of people that I know, they're taking more than 70, 80K home every month.
Wow. Okay.
You will see them having a good number of bikes. They have now flat LED TVs at their homes and all that stuff.
Wow.
So they've succeeded with it, and that is why I would have people from last 10 years with me who've been still with us.
Okay. Our schedule time is over, but can I ask you one or two more questions?
Yeah, we can 5-7 minutes
Maybe.
more. We can go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We had a preliminary call, and at which time you had spoken about how you built both with the scarcity of resources and with abundance of resources. Like today, you are building with abundance of resources. You have more than a 50 million last fundraise. I think you've raised close to 85 billion till date. How has what is the difference between these two mindsets when you're building in a scarcity mindset and building with an abundance mindset?
So I think, see, you always, whenever you are in any of the situation and you are an entrepreneur, you should always look at uh, somewhat a scarcity mindset when you are developing and when you are at development stage of anything, because you can't go extra board, and you have to select your things and you have to first test your models, and you should know that anything behind you is in a very limited sort of a thing. Either it is your own time, either it is the money, Either it is the people that you are hiring and their time and their career. So you have to always know that there's a less number of time so that you can figure out things much faster. If something is not working, you pivot faster. And because you have to survive, it's a survival mode kind of a situation. And that survival mode teaches you a lot of things. Your learning comes from there, right? But while your learning comes from there, usually we mistake out. That's my learning in the life too. Usually we mistake out when you are scaling. You always feel you are in a similar situation, and then you start to take decisions which always about saving money, right? And when you are scaling, saving money is not the right thing, and a lot of times. So when I see situations now and then, I can give you a very small example. Probably if I was the guy who was in 2008-9 growing my business, somebody would tell me, Deepak, you should put some firewalls in place, fix this IT solutions, this and that. It'll take about 50 odd lakhs, but it'll make sure that everything is there. I would probably say, I will take 40 lakhs home rather than spending on it. You spend 10 lakhs, right? Today, if somebody tells me, I say, boss, whatever it takes, even if it takes a double of it, it has to be there. The power of decision changes, and that power shows how you can scale faster. In that situation, I would probably have the journey like this, up and down, sometimes in an issue, sometimes a security issue, sometimes close, sometimes now. And I would never be able to scale. The moment I will scale, I will come down. Now here the decision-making power changes, and you start to decide that the money has to be utilized in a way where the scale can come. And that's where you make big companies. So with that sort of a mindset, you can start, but you can't make big companies. With this sort of a mindset, you can make big companies.
Okay. Fascinating. Let me end with this. What's your advice to young people who are listening to this show?
My advice to a lot of young people probably is that there are the businesses. If you are an entrepreneur and a founder, your job is to be always working, and you should be on the field, right? Whatever kind of the business with the field means, you should be always in an active mode, right? It's founder's job can never be sitting in an AC cabin to build his business, because a lot of us think it is like that. At certain point we will reach, we'll sit from any fascinated cafe or a coffee day or something and start building the business from there, and it builds. It never happens that way, right? We see a lot of stories online, and we get inspired by it, and we get inspired by the success. Some of them tell them the struggles they have, some of them does not, but every story has a certain struggle behind it. So the business of today has to be built on the field, right? And then I say on the field, there are 3-4 more most important things that you should never miss. You should never miss spending time with your customers, even if you are 10x bigger or you're 50x bigger. You should never miss spending time with your employees, because the moment you become bigger, you become inaccessible. The moment you become inaccessible, you don't know what's happening in your company, and you lose the track, and the people start to feel that they have a disconnect, and they never connect to your same vision when you started. So you need to spend with them. You have to always spend time with your vendors too. They're the people who tell you what is your standing in the market, what other people think about you, and are you going on a right track, on a wrong track, and what's the perception? Because within our cabins, we think we are doing great, but your outside perceptions being told by them. So I always make sure that whatever happens or done, my priorities always should be that I'm spending time with at least these 3 people the most.
And how
Why
do you
anybody
do that?
else?
Like, do you go with the flavors for collection visits and all?
I do everything. So I write emails automatically to all my customers every Friday who have taken the test in the last 4-5 days.
Okay.
And that goes directly from my desk, wherein there is a lot of feedbacks and a lot of inputs keeps on coming in. I speak to them on phone. Whosoever replies there, I also call them sometimes and meet them, because they have some great ideas. So I basically call them over tea or coffee. And I also spend a lot of time with these flebos, understanding how the things are. Whenever they are meeting me somewhere, there are a lot of people who have my direct WhatsApp today, and they keep on telling, sir, this market is happening, this player has come, that player has come, and all that stuff. That keeps on giving me a boost in terms of what's happening on the actual ground. A lot of time I do spend, and I make sure that I'm spending with my employees. So from all the levels, right? And it is like a fixated schedule which everybody manages it, and then says that, okay, this is what the time spent, informally, formally, over a coffee, somewhere else, whatever it is. I do make sure that I am actually talking to them and understanding what do they feel about it. And I always check about what I built, is it still on ground or not? Because many a time I see, I said X, and the person has joined 3 months back, he knows why about the company because he's learned somewhere else, because he went on Google, he searched something, he said, this is what it says. I said, no, this is not what it says. This is what we are. And this is how we built it. So you have to keep a track on where the organization is going. And you have to actually bring it back to say, no, that's not our real true self, what you see online, because somebody has written it. This is the real true self. And then the vendors, again, spending time with them is the greatest education that you can get. They make and break you. They spread things about you in terms of a positive manner, and they are the one who would probably tell you about what's your actual standing and what others are saying. So you can alter your image and perception over a time, because that's what it's going in the market. And they also feel that spending time with you means that you feel them as to be a real partners, and in times when you need them and have tested and tried it, they are the first one who would help you. And COVID was one of those times, because we developed such a kind of a relationship. There are tests which was not available probably globally, but there was reagents and tests available with us because they prioritized us. And they knew what we are building, and they knew what our purpose is and why we are serving those particular people. And they gave us those sort of a reagent which was not available anywhere in the world at that point of time. And they were just picking it from smaller labs and giving to us, saying that this lab is shut, why don't you take it from there and all. So this all shows, I can talk to it today because I've seen how it helps, right? When I was doing it unintentionally, I could not imagine that these are the things. When I look back, I could probably say this actually builds the business very, very stronger. And that's the best advice I could give it to people today, to probably go on and spend time with all these three guys. You will be a different guy and you will be building a very different business.
One last question. What are the challenges in front of you today? Like, how will this become 1,000 crore business? What do you think are the challenges you need to solve?
Sure. So challenges in front of us today is very clearly, one, we need to figure out that do we stay at what we are providing as a service, or should we expand more? Which is basically, at certain level, you can provide services through these flavors, which is like a tier 1, tier 2, but there is something much beyond that. So can you, and there the flavor does not make sense because it's already
Like
a very
CT
small
scan,
city.
MRI, these.
No, not the radiology thing that we are very, very clear about, that we don't want to do radiology. But I just talk about in expansion in terms of geographical expansion first. Should we go more deeper into cities where the flebo service might not work, but you have to change a little bit of a model, including international expansions and stuff like that. That's where the things are. And the second challenge obviously is because now a lot of people are approaching us with their prescriptions and specialty tests and everything else, right? And luckily, yeah. So luckily, what is happening is a lot of doctors have approached us during COVID and after COVID, because we always respect them. They are the people who run this industry, right? And now they call us and say the patient is anyways bringing your report, right? And I don't want any arrangement with you, but I want my patients to be serviced well at this city, that city, and there are a lot of inbound interest coming in there. So that relationship is getting formed with them, which means probably that the model stays wherein it is, or it expands into specialty testing or specialized tests, including things like cancer genetics and all those stuff. While we do this largely, but we still do a small portion of those specialized tests, so that menu increment will happen based on that. It's totally about learning from what the consumer is saying and the industry is saying, and the inputs are coming in, and that's where we are basically feeling like there is something that is our next evolution for us. Scalability, I don't think so there is a problem. Becoming a largest player could be a good challenge that we would like to take, versus probably hitting double the number from where we are. And to be the largest player, you have to cross at least 4x of what we are. And I think the industry is much bigger in India for that, and it can be done. That probably could be a good challenge to take, and then probably figure out that with the same sort of a thing, we can still grow in the same speed for the next 4-5 years, or will there be a lesser growth as compared to it in the times to come? And then you have to refigure and re-strategize on where to bring that particular growth from.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Deepak. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you. Thank you so much.